I always think back to KB slipping. Still sits with me. I think that Gibson-Park is the best halfback in the world. Mate, I'm going to go for a 2-1 win to the Aussies. I will comfortably say it's the greatest rugby experience of my rugby career.
Mate, when we think of the Lions and everything like that, I want to sort of go back memory lane to 2013 and that sort of first test, because see what your memories are of that series. What does it mean to face the Lions, mate? And that, if you go back down to 2013 and sort of memory lane, I'll ask you a few questions about it. But as a whole, what was that experience like for you?
Man, I will comfortably say it's the greatest rugby experience of my rugby career. I was fortunate enough to play in 3 World Cups. You know, you played in 4. We both played in World Cup final. I don't think anything that I've been a part of compares to that experience. Man, there was like just the prestige of it, the tradition, the history, the fanfare, the attention, the media. There's been nothing like it that I've ever experienced. And the fact that it's once every 12 years, you know, like we were speaking about James might get the opportunity to play in it twice, but most people only get to play in it once, if not ever, because some people, 12 years is a long time. That's a whole career that you might play and miss out on. And so, mate, there's nothing like it. There's really nothing like it. And it's probably the greatest rugby experience of my career, for sure.
Because there's nothing like it, and from a Lions point of view, from myself, again, I agree with you. I think, you know, playing for your country in a World Cup is huge, but I think the Lions is just different. And that, like, the travelling fans, mate, the sea of red, like when you think of like the intensity of those matches, and the game's changed a fair amount, a lot actually, to be fair, 12 years on, but like the magnitude of it and the following and the hype around it is just like nothing I've ever seen or experienced.
Mate, there's nothing like it. Like, so in Australia, where we have our sporting market is very saturated. You know, like rugby union probably sits 4th or maybe even 5th. You know, we've got rugby league, we've got cricket, we've got soccer, we've ve got AFL. They're the big sports in the country. And so, like, I used to love traveling to the Northern Hemisphere for our Northern tours, because I've never experienced anything like the rugby, the passion that the rugby fans in England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, all have for the game. It's a different atmosphere when you play. They love the game. They're passionate about it. They sing. You know, we can get 52,000 supporters at Suncorp Stadium, but it still doesn't compare to that atmosphere. And so you then think about all 4 of those nations getting together, coming down to Australia, and the fans that follow, and again, the intensity of the supporters, the matches themselves. Oh, mate, it gives me goosebumps thinking about it. You know, yeah, there's nothing like it, man. Like, I can't really explain it or describe it in any other way. You're so lucky if you get an opportunity to play in a Lions series.
Absolutely. Do you think this is perfect timing for Australia to be hosting the Lions? Given the World Cup's around the corner, mate, in 27, they're going to host that. Given, 2023 and the fallout of that, and everyone's sort of like looking and maybe throwing stones, but actually host the Lions now, World Cup then in 27. Is this almost the timing perfect to kind of springboard Australian rugby and get it a bit further down the ladder than, like you say, against the competitive sports that are so well renowned in Australia?
Man, I think it's such a perfect opportunity for us, because if you look at the team, I think that our team the Wallabies are building really nicely. Like, we win this series, we springboard ourselves into the next couple of years leading up to the Rugby World Cup. You gain the following of the people, you gain the interest of the nation. People get behind you. Oh, these guys just won the Lions series. The next for them is a home Rugby World Cup. You know, and who's to say that if we beat the Lions, we can springboard ourselves into an opportunity to potentially win the Bledisloe, which we haven't won in close to 25, 26 years. And so it's a you know, if I was a coach or if I was someone involved in the team, that's the message that I would be saying to these guys, that you guys can really change the perception of rugby in this country over the next couple of years. And what an opportunity, what a privilege. Yeah, there's a lot of pressure, but you walk towards it, and you guys could be remembered, you know, for what you've done for the game to springboard it into heights that it's never been in. And so I'm super excited as a former Wallaby and as a rugby fan for what these guys can do for our game in the country at the moment.
The pressure and walking towards it, mate, that's one thing I'll miss, is pressure of the game. But the pressure of that first test, in 2013, mate, your quick tap, set up Israel Folau for the first try, like phenomenal. Like, what's your memories of that game?
Mate, so leading into that series, so I'd got injured end of 2012, and so I only came back for full fitness. I did my ACL. I'd come back maybe 3 or 4 weeks before that. or maybe 4 or 5 weeks before that, to full fitness and playing. And I just remember thinking to myself, it's going to be a huge event. It's going to be massive. There's going to be people all over the world watching. There's going to be people coming in from Northern Hemisphere to watch. It's going to be epic. It's going to be huge. I can either walk towards that and really embrace that and go out there and just be who I am and play the way the game that I see it, or I can go into my shell. And the funny thing about that moment, when we were given that penalty, it slowed down. I kid you not, everything slowed down, and it was almost like I saw the space, and then again it slowed down, and I was like, space is there. This is the moment that you were talking about, where you can either back yourself and be who you are and play the game that you want to see it and go, or you can sort of cower into your shell and just play the percentages. And I was like, nah, like I'm going for it. And like I took the tap, and obviously it worked out well where we scored. But that's probably the memory that I have most of that first test, but also the series in general, because we lost that first test, and then we were lucky enough to win the second test. I got man of the match. You know, we didn't fare so well in the third test, but one thing I was most proud about from a personal perspective was I set the goal of wanting to really embrace that moment, go after it. And when I was presented with the opportunity in that first test, I went for it. And I was fortunate that it came off.
Well, I was watching you do it, mate. I was on the bench, and the Lions were actually like kind of on top, pounding, and then penalty. And off you went and created something out of absolutely nothing. And that's what great players do. And I remember at the time thinking, oh, shit, he's done it again. Like, he's literally done it again. He's just like created something out of nothing, mate. And like that test, one thing I remember about the first test though, mate, of course, is Curtly Bill slipping over for the kick to win it right in front.
That still eats me away, mate. That still eats at me. It still eats at me, mate. It really does.
Does it really?
Mate, I only have one regret in my whole rugby career, and it's that we lost that series because of how big it is. That's the only regret I have in my rugby career. And like, I always think back to KB slipping, and I'm like, bro, we're studs. Yeah, like we have laugh about it now, but it's just, yeah, mate, that still sits with me, man. Still sits.
It's one of those where he's lining it up, and obviously you're, from the Lions' point of view, you're standing on the pitch and you're expecting, oh, this is, you know what I mean, this is going over, they're going to win, and we'll have to go again next week. But when he slipped and missed, man, it's just like, wow, like did not expect that. But actually, James O'Connor missed a fair few early on as well. But those games just come down to like small margins, don't they? And I expect the same this series. It'll be small margins,
mate. It will be, and I think again, like the nature of our team, I think we're growing, and if you look at the Super Rugby, especially like for us, like I don't think a New Zealand team has won on Australian soil yet. You know, there's been all this history around the Kiwi teams dominating us, and mate, it's a really, really competitive competition where, more importantly, the big players, the Wallaby players within our Super Rugby teams are playing well this year. You know, and there's guys on the fringes who are playing well this year, and whether that's because the carrot of the Lions series is there or not, that fills me with a lot of confidence going into the series that, well, our big players are playing well. They're playing with confidence. And so that when those fine margins, again, as you're saying, determine and define matches, we've got guys who are playing well, you know, who are in a good spot that can hopefully give us an opportunity to get ahead in those fine margins to man, hopefully win the series. Man, I'm getting excited thinking about it. Gotta get me a jersey, see if I can get out there.
From the outside, everyone would say, oh, the Rebels folding was a really bad thing. But actually, now you're looking at the teams that are bolstered on the back of them folding, and Australian rugby looking stronger in that Super Rugby. They're being really competitive. Is it better having less teams and more guys playing together?
Yeah, blessing in disguise. Like we don't have the talent to be able to have 5 teams. Like I said, like our sporting market's saturated. The best athletes go to AFL or rugby league, and so to then have 5 teams when we don't have the talent pool, it sort of spreads it too thin, where we don't have enough quality within our teams. And so because we've then cut the Rebels again, unfortunately, and we've got really good quality players that have bolstered the other squads, and I think that's a big reason as to why we're more competitive this year.
Just coming back to that second test, Will, was that the most pressure you've felt as a player, given you lost the first one in the manner that you did, and it's like all or nothing in that second test? Was that the most pressure you've ever felt?
I wouldn't say no, it wasn't. Like I was very much in a frame of mind during that series where I was like, man, I'm gonna go out there and just play. Like in an arena where it's the biggest arena, like the biggest thing I'm ever going to be a part of, I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to play. So I didn't. The only time I did feel the pressure was when Lee Halfpenny was lining up the kick at the end. I was thinking to myself, if he kicks us, I'm gonna cry and just run off the field. I really felt it then, but I wouldn't say I felt the pressure. Where I felt the pressure in the third test, more so than the second, because then everything's on the line. Well, everything was on the line in the second test, but when you're in a decider, it's a different sort of mental state that you find yourself in. But no, I'd say I felt the pressure more in the third one, more so than the second.
The chat leading into that third one, from our point of view, was that we felt that the emotional energy and the psychological toll it would have taken to get yourselves to that second test victory, we actually felt confident that you wouldn't be able to reach those heights again. And there's so much to be said for that. It's 3 intense weekends with a huge build-up. The cognitive load is massive. And actually, Lions ran away with it in that third one.
Big time. We didn't start that game well. Off the kickoff, I knocked it on, I think. And then you boys had a scrum, and our scrum was on skates. And 3 or 4 or 5 phases later, I think you boys scored under the sticks. And yeah, we were just chasing the game from that point on. You guys dominated us physically, particularly in the scrum that test, and we couldn't stay with you. Funny story about that though. After that test, we all got in a bus to go back to our home provinces, and I'm sitting at the back of the bus. Boys have had a few too many drinks, whatever, and then we're sitting at the back of the bus, and I just hear this bloke start. He bursts out into tears and he's crying. He's bawling his eyes out. I'm like, what the fuck's going on here? Like, who's crying? I looked forward and it was Benny Alexander, and he's just crying, bawling his eyes out in his hands, talking about the scrum and how we were on skates and how he's let us down and all this type of stuff. Funny story, but what it made me realize at the moment was like how much people care and how much it means to people and how big it was for us, to have experienced the last 3 weeks against the Lions that year. But that last test, Jesus, we were chasing the game. Jamie Roberts had a blinder. The big decision for you blokes was actually him coming in for O'Driscoll, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Jonathan Davis came in for Brian O'Driscoll, and Jamie Roberts, I think, came off the bench. He'd had a bad hamstring. But Gatland sort of, he kind of went with who he knew and trusted, which was quite Welsh predominant. But they got the job done, mate. But with the Benny Alexander thing, mate, I think that's the thing. I think sometimes people don't realise how much guys care and how much these, when something doesn't go right in your professional sport, is you have to carry that, mate. You have to wear that, and it's hard, mate. We had a 2019 World Cup final. Of course, you had 2015 World Cup final. Like, it stays with you. Like, you don't forget them. Like, it pops up in your mind out of the most randomest times.
But especially because you put so much work into it. Like, that's the thing. Like, we touched on it earlier. Like, the game days are the enjoyable part. You can always just turn up and play a game of footy, but the amount of work that goes in throughout the week over the course of the season, like, that's the hard stuff. And so when you put in all that work, it's in the gym, it's on the field, it's in the extras, it's with your skill work, it's with the footage that you watch. And when it doesn't come to fruition and it doesn't work out in your favour, it's heartbreaking. Like, it really is, especially in the biggest moments. And so, like, I have a bit of a laugh about Benny, but I say it basically to illustrate how much it meant to us and how much it meant to him and how devastating it was. And like I said, 12 years later, that's the one thing that I still regret in my rugby career, was that series, because I was confident in our ability to be able to win that series, and it didn't eventuate. And so it still sits with you, mate, because you care.
Absolutely, mate. They're doing an invitational team against the Lions, aren't they? And there's chat about certain players maybe playing it. You keen, mate? Get your boots out, play against them, 12 years on?
Mate, I'd love to. I'll put my hand up for both teams, the Anzac 15 and the Pacific Island team. I'll qualify for both, so I'm just waiting for someone to hit me up.
Yeah, someone hit him up. Get you out there, mate. 12 years down the line. How good would that be? How good would that be?
It'd be unreal.
Now, I want to get your views on Gibson-Park. Jensen Gibson-Park, of course, plays for Ireland. In my opinion, front runner to be Lions 9. I think it's his to lose rather than his to gain. He's a key player for Ireland, the way he orchestrates the game. What's your view, having watched him, I'm sure, and your take on him, mate?
Mate, I think he's easily the best halfback in the world.
Really?
I know there's a lot
Ahead
of
of
talk
Dupont?
about... Mate, yeah, I do. I know that, like, Dupont's an athletic freak. Like, there's never been anyone like him, because, and he's incredibly skillful. But I don't know. Like, my favorite halfbacks coming through the game was guys like yourself, Aaron Smith, Fareed Dupree, guys with like a real sense of skill and finesse and ability to act as a playmaker as a halfback as well. I'm not saying Dupont doesn't do that, not at all. But when I watch like Gibson-Park, he reminds me of guys like yourself. He's real smooth with the way he plays the game. He's real decisive. He's got great vision, excellent skills, but he's, yeah, mate. It's hard. For me, he's definitely the best halfback in the world. I think it'd be him and Dupont, but I think he's one of the big reasons why Ireland is so successful and Ireland is so good. He gives them tempo, he gives them direction, and touching on what we were speaking about before in terms of at test level minimizing errors, he rarely makes mistakes, and he performs at an 8, 9 out of 10 every week. And he'd be up there with try assists from. Like, I've seen how many times he's played down the short side throwing, putting guys in space, the long balls over the top to James Lowe, crossfield kicks off the back of the ruck. He's world class. I don't think it's even a debate as to who the halfback is for the Lions.
No, there's no debate. I agree with you on that, mate. He definitely the guy. And I think that he is the guy that Australia will have to shut down, to be honest. Because the other thing as well, which he gives himself, and great nines do, is time on the ball. Time on the ball on the back of a ruck that's chaotically competitive, that guys are trying to hound you from both sides of the ruck and everything like that. To give yourself time and space to still make great decisions, distribute short, long, like you say, he does the long pass over top, the short kicking game, and everything like that. Like, that is, you've got to have a certain mindset and calmness where, you know, when you mentioned earlier, Will, about everything slowed down for you, mate, and you just like autopilot and off you go. It is like that. Like, everything looks on TV or looks live like manically quick, but in your head and your feeling is actually everything's actually pretty slow.
Yeah, mate. I think you nailed it. He certainly looks like he always has time on the ball. Like, he'd be sitting at the back of a ruck, and he's almost he's got his hands on the ball, and he's assessing in 1-2 seconds what decision he's going to make. And the one thing he really reminds me a lot of Fred Dupree is I remember watching Dupree, like, mate, that bloke would make the right decision 9 times out of 10. And when I watch someone like Gibson-Park, he has the ability, that same ability, that he's always making the right decisions. He's not overplaying his hand. He's playing almost 2-3 moments in front of everybody else. I can't speak highly enough of him. Like, again, Dupont's an absolute freak, and it's probably a case of where, you know, we're seeing all these things, and he's so good that he's doing it consistently that it's like, okay, well, let's look at someone else. But I'm a big fan of Gibson-Park because he's probably, and I'm biased, but he's probably my type of player, as opposed to someone like Dupont. And Dupont's an all-time great. I'm not going to sit on here and disrespect him in that way, but I think that Gibson-Park is the best halfback in the world. And
if you think that, you know, if Andy Farrell brings in that sort of Ireland attacking system, which is a very layered, tight attack, tight shapes, that almost the 10 is the facilitator within the shape, and the shape does the damage rather than the 10's individual flair doing the damage. You know, it's like they hold onto the ball and grind you down through this really tight shape and pod system, that the 10 is just facilitating it. That almost you'd say Finn Smith is a great orchestrator, facilitator, but then he doesn't have the individual, I suppose, moments that a Finn Russell and a Marcus Smith potentially have. So it's the 10 is a really interesting debate, to be fair, mate.
And that's the beauty, though, of like a series like this. Just the narratives and the storylines around, like, selection, around who comes, why this person didn't come. And I think it's going to be an awesome thing to see play out, and really, really interesting. Yeah, man, I couldn't pick it, but if I had to pick, I'd probably stick with the combinations. But I'm a big fan of Marcus Smith as well, man. Like, he reminds me a lot of Quade Cooper, actually, of Quade, and so, like, I'm drawn to players like that. I feel like that's how I grew up playing the game, like a Marcus Smith and a Finn Russell, those types of players, guys like yourself, and, you know, instinctive footy players that like to play the game and move the ball and use skill. It was quite hard for me to transition into playing the way rugby is played now, in terms of the structure and the structure beating you as opposed to the skill and the player beating you. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting to see who he takes based on how he wants to play the game.
I agree with you, Will. Like, you think when we first started, mate, going through the archives to sort of where the game is now and the way that It's incredibly structured. Defenses are so well organised, and almost the game favours defence. Like in terms of the rules, I still feel like it's still defence heavy. Like it rewards defence. So sometimes you're better off without the ball. These now flair individual players are even more sort of highlighted because they're doing it in a system and a rugby period or a time where it's so incredibly structured that they really have got gold dust, you know.
So we grew up in a time where, again, like the skills is what beats teams. You know, you use your skill, and because the game wasn't as structured then, what it allowed players to do was develop the skill of decision making and looking for cues around the decisions that they make. Whereas I think now players rely on the structure to make the decisions for them. Almost like, okay, if I get to this part of the field, there should be this amount of numbers here, not there, so I'll go here and I'll do this. I'll have these guys here with me. Whereas it took me a while to get used to that because I was used to, well, I see space here, I'm going to play there, you come with me, and let's use our skill, whether it's pass, kick or run, to be able to manipulate that space. But it was hard for me to adjust because the guys coming up now that play the game, it's very much about, well, no, if we go here, let's put all our numbers here and put our numbers here, and it's going to give us an opportunity to play here, and we should, after 6 phases, be there. But, you know, and it kind of, you said, it still does my head in, but I've sort of had to adjust with the times and sort of master it a bit, you know what I mean? But yeah, it certainly is a different game to when we started, for sure.
Yeah, it's decisions within the shape, decisions within the structure, rather than just instinctive, right, I'm going to space, flatten up, hit the hole, I can play out the back, play short, and then we were on the same way because now we've got speed of ball, momentum. Like it's very different, as you mentioned. Just on Quade, mate, I'd love to know, because I'm sure the listeners would. What was it like playing with Quade? And like, how much did you have to work in terms of being on sync, or was it just very much natural because you both saw the game the same way?
The best thing ever playing with Quade, because we do very much see the game the same way. Particularly, well, because we met each other when we were 15, mate. Like, we've known each other for ages. We come through the system together at 16s at schoolboys, and then we started at the Reds at the same year. But we very much saw the game the same way, and were able to then build a really, really solid level of trust with that as well. Like, and again, I mentioned it earlier, but when we were at the Reds, we had coaches that really backed us and built a game style around us, and so when we're out there, you know, he'd be doing what he's doing, and I'm giving him complete trust. And then likewise with me, if I'm going down a short side or I'm putting a kick over the top, there's just trust that's given, but also trust that's earned through the execution and the work that you put in throughout the week and the performances that you put out in the weekend. And mate, he's sort of got a reputation of someone who plays off the cuff, but mate, he's such a student of the game. Like, he studies the game. He understands the game on a level that not a lot of people do. That sometimes I get even lost when we sit down and have footy conversations, because he cares so much about it. He's a student of it, and yeah, mate, he certainly made my job a lot easier over the years. You know what I mean, with some of the things he was able to do.
Mate, he's so talented. Like, playing against him and having watched him, like, what a talent, mate. Make stuff happen, and like, long live those type of players, mate, that just create stuff and gets people off their feet.
Big time, man, big time.
How did you feel, mate? You know, in 2019, because obviously we played you guys in the quarterfinal, and the bits that I remember that game, I remember you boys coming out, and I remember you guys playing at lightning pace, mate, and you were fizzing it away like wide passes, and it was just like a wave of Aussie attack. And actually, I think, was it Pocock, I think, chucked an offload maybe, and Henry Slade picked it up, and we were on the ropes, mate, and we got a breakaway try, but
that broke us, that intercept, because we were going all right, actually. We were throwing it around, and then that intercept sort of broke us mentally, and we were chasing the game from that point.
It's mad how, like, you can feel like, from our point of view, like, we're under the cosh, under pressure, and then just like a let off valve of like, one mistake, we capitalise, and it kind of completely deflates you but completely energises us. And I remember when Corabetti scored a try, didn't he? And it brought you boys straight back into it. And mate, I felt like we felt the heat under the sticks, mate, during that. When Corabetti scored, it was like we felt like we were in control, and it was like, shit, like, game back on, you know? And it's a weird feeling.
Mate, it's real weird, because we were like, you speak to Checo about it, actually. Checo would be a good man to speak to about like our campaign that year in 2019. Like, we changed the way we played basically like 3 months out from the World Cup, 4 or 5, maybe 4 or 5 months out from the World Cup, because we played a certain way from 2014 when he took over. And then I think it was the start of 2019 when we started going to camps in preparation for that World Cup. We changed the way we played completely. So for us, we were still, even at that point, trying to figure it out and trying to find our groove within it. And there were times in games where it worked really well. Ball was fizzing, we were moving it around. But then when things didn't go our way, like for example, that intercept, we sort of felt quite defeated because it was still so new to us in how we were trying to play that we didn't have something of a default pattern to go back to get ourselves back in the game. It was a bit chaotic, if I'm being honest. And so when you guys took that intercept, we sort of felt a bit broken, if I'm being honest.
I think on the on the try there on the Corabetti, I think we bounced straight back with Carl Sinclair. He then scored, mate, and it kind of then managed everyone. But on the Czech stuff, mate, we went out. We caught up with him the other week. A load of us went out for sort of a meal with him, basically.
He's a great man. Great man.
He's a great man. He was telling us some of his stories, and he basically said how. Did he go do some interrogation? And he said he reckons that you gave up a bit of information, mate.
Mate, first of all, I love Czech. I love Czech. He's such a great man. He's different. He gives up this perception of this crazy sort of a bloke, but he cares for his players. He's a really good person. He looked after me really well. He was there for me through like some tough times as well. But he was a bit crazy too sometimes, mate. Like when we had that 2015 Rugby World Cup, I got a couple of stories actually. We had to like meet at these warehouses all over wherever I was in Brizzy. So it was like, mate, you get a text, meet at this time, and come alone. You know, it was like we going into like SAS camp or something. You know, some scary type of thing. And then you walk in this room and you just get interrogated all these questions. Have you got anything on your phone that could expose you or your teammates or your family? Do you have anything at all that could derail this campaign? And you couldn't, and you had to sit with your back to the person who was interviewing you. And so I'm like sitting there, so like I'm shitting myself thinking like, is there some bloke here that's taking stuff off my phone? Did I delete photos that I shouldn't have on my phone? That type of stuff, do you know what I mean? And then you later on come to find out that it was Czech sitting behind you. And you're like, oh, fucking hell.
Mate,
the funny thing about that World Cup is, mate, when for 3 weeks, mate, we were literally, you were our main man for 3 weeks in the lead up to that Rugby World Cup. So he identified that England was going to be our biggest game in the pool. That's going to make or break our World Cup. And he said, that Ben Youngs, mate, he can play, and he's the bloke that we've got to make sure we take care of. He's crafty, he likes to pull players in space in and around the ruck. And so for 3 weeks, it was me and Fipsy, like we'd be going against each other, and whatever team was running the opposition plays, we were you with a bib on. And mate, he would get into us. He'd get our team forwards to like keep us on the ground, hit us off the ball, call our names out. And I remember thinking to myself after a couple of weeks, like, tell you what, our blokes better be doing this to him when we play him in the World Cup because we're copping shit on this bloke's behalf. And it's funny to me now that he's coaching you.
Yeah. But do you know what, mate? The ironic thing is we do exactly the same when facing you, mate. And whoever's running as you is getting the same cop. And it's horrible, isn't it?
Oh, it's the worst.
Because in training, in defence, mate, lads are like leaving one on you. You pass the ball, it's like you pass the ball, you're nice and relaxed, and you get a shove on the back. You sort of get whiplash on your neck. You're like, lads, I get it, right? But like, please transfer this onto the pitch. Like, because I'm having a rough day here, getting your foot stood on and all sorts.
No, the worst one I hate is when they hold you on the ground and then you're like 4 or 5 seconds late to the ruck and then you're getting sprayed for being slow and you're like, what do you want me to do?
Wrestle off.
Yeah, bro. How do you get to the point where, you know, it's time? Is it mental, physical? Like, what is it?
Bit of both, really, mate. I think I love the Saturdays. I still love playing the game. But the rest in between, I just find like the desire to do that is wearing thin. And I think, you know what it's like as a nine, like you're so involved in strategies and planning and we've got to run this and we're going to do this and you're looking at opposition, you're previewing and you're looking at areas to try and do it. And then you're driving it throughout the week. Like, okay, this is how we're going to do it. And then you're tweaking that stuff. And almost all that becomes, it's like another layer to deal with. And I guess from my point of view, mate, it's got to a stage now where I still love the Saturdays, the bits in between that I find like I could do without. And I guess just the fire in me just isn't there, you know? Like, it's like the Bunsen burner, mate, the old chemistry lessons where you used to like twist the air and it just gets low. You have that really strong flame where you have that one that's just about going. And I just feel like that, mate. And the thing is like, I could do another year. I could generally, like physically, I could do another year. Mentally, I probably could. But then I don't think I'll be doing myself or the club or anyone like the service it deserves, you know, like, because maybe 4 months, 5 months down the line, you're like, I just can't give it what it needs, like what it genuinely needs.
Especially from where you come from too, you know what I mean? Like most captain English player, however many games for Leicester, you know what I mean? There's a standard that you sort of set into, it's almost like you're just hanging on if you just hang around, you know what I mean?
Yeah, mate, exactly right. And I think when I pulled the pin on international stuff in 2023, that kind of felt harder than this decision, if that makes sense, because I think Test football's why you do it. Like the games that we've had against each other, mate. Some of those games at Twickenham or in Australia, in Brisbane, like Suncorp's one of my favourites. Like, though, mate, that's what you play the game for. Like those moments, those pressure and all that. And then I think when I stepped away from that, that was probably harder than necessarily this decision. You know, it just feels right, mate. It just feels like the right time to kind of go into whatever's next, step away, and be content. I saw Alex Ferguson did his book anyway, and I read it. And one of the things he says in that, he said he always felt like players should retire a year earlier than they could. And I kind of get that, you know, like I do, because I don't want to end up being bitter towards the game. Not that I would be, but you know, like it ends up being such a grind that you kind of resent it, which is wrong, and I don't want that.
Yeah, but I remember, I thought the same way, like when I finished playing for Australia, like 2019 was, I retired from Test footy at that stage. And like, I could have kept playing the weekends, like you were saying. The Saturdays were easy because it's fun, it's enjoyable. But the work that you have to put in throughout the week, you know, the training, just the competitive edge that you got to have with yourself and your teammates, and like you're saying, the strat, all that type of stuff. I couldn't do that stuff anymore. I genuinely couldn't do that stuff. And like, that was hard for me to step away from it. But I was fortunate that I sort of come here into Japan where it's a lot easier on the body. Like I've been here for 6 years, and like I reckon I could play another 4 or 5 years. You know what I mean? Because it's not as taxing. It's a different culture, which is a refreshing experience as well in itself. And so, and I've been lucky in that sense. But so I'm not sure when I'll get to the point where I hang them up completely, mate. Because I still enjoy it. Like I still. It's a little bit easier being over in Japan. Like you've been in the grind of it all, not just playing Test footy, but playing in the Premiership, which has been quite difficult on the body for a long period of time as well. So
yeah, I think the way that the season's structured over here, mate, like it is relentless. And I look at the Japan system and the way it's set up, mate, like it's great. And I think that's probably what keeps you, Will, like feeling fresh and feeling good and mentally fresh, because it's not such a grind. Do you know what I mean? It's actually like if it's condensed season, you're in and it's competitive, but you're in and it's done. And I suppose you can then, I'm guessing on your off time, you head back to Oz, do you, mate? Or do you stay out in Japan all year round? How do you work it? No, I head back to
Oz and Papua New Guinea. My daughter's in Papua New Guinea and my family's all in Papua New Guinea. So I get back there a fair bit, spend some time there. And you're right, we're lucky, mate, because you play here and you get 3 months off at the end of the season. Like you never get that off in any other rugby club or any rugby competition, let alone any other job. So, you know, you're certainly living the dream over in that sense. And it allows you to be mentally and physically refreshed whenever you do get back into season.
One thing I want to ask you, Will, given how highly I regard you, mate, and so much respect playing against you over the years. We actually first played against each other under 20s, actually. So for a lot of listeners, they probably may not know this, but we went all the way through together, mate, and had all these games. So much respect for the way that you play the game. But one thing I always admired was your running game, mate, and your ability to break tackles and create holes. Was that something that came natural to you, mate? Like, how do you facilitate that? Because for me, like playing against you and watching you, and I'd watch tapes of you, watch you do your Super Rugby, like all this stuff, mate, because I want to learn off you. And the biggest thing for me was your ability to snipe around those breakdowns and just like create space and havoc around that. Was that something that was just instinctive to you, or was that something you actually had to work on, mate? How did you create that space for yourself, mate?
I'd say it was instinctive because I like to run the ball. Naturally, I was someone who wanted the ball in my hands as much as I could possibly have it. And so when you come up through playing professionally, you know, as a halfback, you have to be a facilitator probably 90% of the time. Do you know what I mean? But I remember I was sitting down with my dad one time, actually. My dad said to me, I was going through a bit of a patch where I was in and out of the team when I was a young kid at the Reds. And he said to me, he said, look, you know how to play. You understand where space is. You're strong enough through the carry. You can run the ball. You can facilitate as well. But if you see opportunities, whether it's down the short side, whether it's the second or third defender to get out and scoot, like back yourself and play. And I remember thinking to myself, I said, you know what, like I'm going to go out there and just play the way that the way that I feel. Like I'm going to take space where I see it, whether I'm going to hit a left-footed kick, it might be rubbish, or I might hit a little like a right-footed toppy over the top, or run through, whatever it is. And so I remember once I changed my mindset to be able to trust my instincts and back myself, that sort of transformed my game, because I was naturally quite strong. I was naturally quite quick. I was naturally a good decision maker, and I had good vision. And so it was certainly an instinctual thing, but it took me a while to get to a place where I could actually trust those instincts and back those instincts.
Because that, mate, when I think about some of your highlight reels and that try in particular for the Reds, you just mentioned the Reds coming through early and a bit in and out, but that Reds try against Crusaders, mate, to win the Super Rugby title, like that is just like, people watch Dupont, right, and they see him run and kind of go left, bounce right. But for me, mate, you're the first that brought that to the running nine. And then was it, so like once you got over that psychological bit in terms of like backing yourself, and then once you actually transferred it, was it like, okay, now I know I can carry through those tight spaces. I've got the physical attributes to break tackles. I've got the physical attributes to go around people. So then was it more than just being patient and just waiting for the right cues to then go take that?
Exactly right. It's the cues. It's the cues more than anything. Like you know what it's like. It's speed of ball. It's what defenders are in around the 1-2 space. Are they tight forwards or are they back rowers? If they're back rowers, they're going to be a little bit more agile, a bit more mobile. So you're not going to be able to probably manipulate them as much. But if you see tight forwards in that space, you know, your 1, your 2, your 3, if you're getting behind, if you're getting over the gain line, then there's an opportunity to get out and run. And I was really lucky also. Like I had coaches who backed me. Like when we were at the Reds, and this is the biggest thing I'd say that helped me, was they built a game style around myself and Quade. They understood what our strengths were. You know, we didn't go into a team where they said, this is how we're playing, you fit to how we want to play. They understood that we were quite instinctive players. We liked to run the ball. We would back ourselves if we saw space. And so having that freedom, because those coaches backed us, really allowed us to express that instinctive ability, and then sort of perfect it as we got older. And so for me, it's very much around speed of ball, whether you get over the gain line, how many defenders fold. And I always tell this to young halfbacks all the time. You've got to think about the game as a 360, as opposed to just what's in front of you and what's behind you. Because when you're coming from a ruck, you've also got to look, okay, what's on the short side? Have they overfolded? Is there space? Who's folded? Where are they in the defensive line? Is there an opportunity for me to get out? Are they set? Do I then just pass off the ground? Has the winger come up? Is there space for the ball over the top? All that type of stuff. And that was the biggest thing that allowed me to actually then pick the right moments to run, because you understand you've got to be looking at everything, listening for everything. And the biggest challenge, I guess, for me to get to that point was getting fit enough to do that. When I was younger, I could probably do it for maybe effectively over a course of 80 minutes for maybe like 20 minutes. But then the fitter you get, the clearer you are in your mind to be able to make better decisions and see what's actually out there. Because when you're tired and you're not fit enough, you're thinking about being tired. You're not thinking about where the space is, about the opportunities that present themselves.
So true, mate. And then when you actually then go to execute, you're sloppy because you haven't got the physical anaerobic ability to execute. But the cue bit is so true. And the cue bit you get from tape, from watching it, from thinking about it, practicing it, picking up cues, as you say, Will. Like I always used to love, like I knew like if the second guy coming around to fold, like as soon as I see him go lateral, like I know I can get in his inside shoulder and get into that space. And if he jams in, mate, I know I give it. If he doesn't, you just take on that inside defender like one-on-one and just try and burn him. So, mate, it's so true. I think for any young halfbacks, like wisdom from you there, mate. And talking of coaches that backed you at the Reds and everything like that, leads on nicely really to Joe Schmidt, mate, and what he's done for Australia. Because, I mean, I gave Australia a bit of stick and...
mate, I remember.
To be fair, you did message me, mate, and say, thanks, mate, you've taken a solid for me there because...
Mate, I did too.
Because you didn't think you thought Australia might be up against England. You didn't see it coming either, mate. So, but I managed to take all the flack for you as well, mate. So no problems. But just the impact Joe Schmidt's done, because when I watched the Rugby Championship and where Australia were at, they're a bit hit and miss, especially that Argentina game. And I was watching it thinking, oh, this isn't great, you know, lines coming around and everything like that. But actually, he's done a really good job in turning them around. Like, what's your view on it, and what's your take on Joe Schmidt?
Well, firstly, I think he's done an exceptional job. But I think what he's done really well with the current squad is he's simplified everything. I think if you look at when he was coaching Ireland, it was quite structured, but it was very much focused on the basics of the game. They were very, very good at the attacking breakdown. They're very accurate in what they did, very simple in terms of the way that they don't play much rugby in the half. They're contestable kicks, put the catch under pressure, play off the errors. But then once they get in the position to be able to attack, it's really simple, relying on the physicality of the big boys that we have and just being really accurate in and around the breakdown. I think the structure that he's brought in has really helped in simplifying people's roles, which has made it easier for the players. Because I think, and this is no slight on anyone, I think in years gone by in Australian teams, we've had probably more talented players where we've been able to express ourselves better and play with a bit more freedom, because you had talented guys like David Pocock, Israel Folau, Quade Cooper, Bernard Foley, all those types of players. Whereas I think now we probably don't have that talent pool. So what's really helped us to improve and perform is simplifying it and making it a bit more structured, where people know exactly what their roles are in certain parts of the field.
Yeah, you can see that, and I think the growth they've had is it's almost like the autumn finish, and they almost need another campaign to kind of kickstart, like to carry on that trajectory that they're on the way up. Then, like in terms of that backline you just mentioned, Will, like, because like the backlines that I faced, you guys, including yourself, was like stacked with talent, as you mentioned. And maybe there isn't as much, but then you start thinking of Joseph Suaalii, like Samu Karevi, if he's going to play, if he's going to be available and play. Like, you start looking at these guys, mate, they can mix it. Tom Wright, a fullback, like he's a really great open runner. Do you think, like, if you were to pick your backline, mate, like that is a pretty impressive backline?
Mate, you know what? It actually really is. Like I did say that there was probably more talent in the teams in years gone by, but probably on the whole there was. But there's certain individuals within that squad now that, like you said, Suaalii, like he was incredible when he played his first test against England. And I think what I will say about the current crop is, I think their forward pack, I think, has the ability to be a great forward pack in World Rugby, because we've got the physicality and the size, and we're very good in and around the scrum, in and around the maul. You know, a lot of the Wallaby teams I played, and we probably weren't, you know, we weren't very good at scrums. Do you know what I mean? So like, whereas this team, this current crop, have got the ability to play the game in today's day and age, where it suits our pack, where we can. It's all about power. You know what it's like at the test level now. It's about size. It's about power. It's not necessarily ball and play like it used to be, and that certainly suits our athletes. And so, you know, if we can get the selection right, and I think if we can get our combinations right and gel in the time that we have in the preparation leading up to that line series, mate, we give ourselves a pretty good chance.
And talking of that pack, mate, because Coley's a big fan of Angus Bell, mate. Mate, he can carry a ball, can't he?
He's a beast,
like,
man.
Because
Jesus.
you think of like a prop and what they have to do, mate. Because the modern day prop, you got to scrum, you got to maul, you got to hit rucks, you got to tackle, you got to jackal. But mate, he's carrying against England in particular in the autumn gone. He was phenomenal. Valentini as well, McWright.
He's a big boy too. He'd be easily well and truly over 6 foot, and big engine, can carry. Like you said, he does his core roles really well in the scrum and in the lineup. But in the loose, Jesus, man, he can carry and he can play. If you can get him and Taniela Tupou firing together, like, that's a great combination. I think Nell has probably struggled a bit in terms of consistency with his performances, but if you get those two fit and firing, mate, that's a handful for any team.
And at 9, mate, who do you think can pull the strings behind that? So from an Australian's point of view, mate, who do you reckon will be the one orchestrating behind that pack?
Mate, I'd say Jake Gordon, because I think he really suits the style of rugby that Joe Schmidt wants to play. Again, like, I really think it's a simple, very structured way of playing, and Jake does his core roles as a halfback. He's excellent at. He's got a good pass. He's got a good kick. He doesn't make very many errors, and he just does the simple things well. I'm a big fan of Tate McDermott, because he's my type of player. You know, he'd probably be our type of player. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's a running 9, he's an attacking 9. He likes to attack in and around the fringes, play down the short side. But I think he probably needs to work on his core roles as a halfback. He can be a bit inconsistent with his passing at times. And you know what it's like at the top level. errors result in tries or points down the other end. You can get away with that type of stuff at Super Rugby and at Club Rugby, but not at the top level. And so I probably see him sticking with Jake. And to be fair, mate, Jake's been really good. I think he's been really, really good in the last couple of years that he's worn that number 9 jersey.
Sometimes the best or the key to being a great test player is the consistency and lack of errors. Because you say, well, like, you can get away with errors in Prem, mate, where we play. You can get away with errors in Japan. But at the test level, mate, you make an error as a halfback, you kick the ball out on the full, let's say, you drop it, bad putt, like, they can cost you. Like, that can be the difference between those momentum shifts, which we touched on earlier. And it can be absolutely key, where almost like Jake Gordon can, like, set the game up, and then Tate McDermott can come on, let's say, with 20 and almost be that impact guy where, without being critical, but like if the game's tight and stuff, it's almost okay, maybe you don't put him on, right? But if like the game is like needs some tempo, it's like gone really flat and stale, like he's the perfect guy to come on, mate, because he's busy around the rucks, he's jumping out, he's taking on defenders, he's got great speed of ball, he's small in stature, but he gets out, he suddenly starts to get to third defenders, they're turning in, and you can see him being that sort of key guy in the last 20 minutes if they need to unleash him. Whereas if it's almost tight and needs that management, then actually Gordon's probably the guy to see it through.
Yeah, mate, I agree. I think I'm with you on the test rugby. You're right. There's a misconception that get someone out there and play with flair and play with that X factor and all that type of stuff. I really think it's just about being clean at that level. You're being as clean as you possibly can, and it's basically just a war of attrition. You just wait for the other team to crack. It's about playing percentages. It's about playing territory. It's about doing the simple things well. And then once there's a little crack, like you're saying, whether it's you that makes a mistake or someone drops a ball, at that top level against the best players, it turns into an opportunity for them to score, whether it's a penalty or a maul 5 meters out that leads to a try or a scrum, all that type of stuff. And that builds pressure again to then continue that keeping the other team under the pump.
Yeah, absolutely. For listeners that are joining us here today, I mean, Jake Gordon, that maybe some of you don't know a huge amount, is, like I say, and like we'll touch on, he controls it nicely, really sort of consistent in his performances, error-free, and sort of suits that Joe Schmidt in terms of just being like, helps the individuals sort of shine and in terms of facilitate it. So that's what you'd expect from him. Matt, I've got asked to finish up. How do you see the series finishing, mate? What's your predictions as we head in towards Lions? How are you calling it, mate? How are you calling it?
First of all, mate, what's your prediction? I want to hear yours.
Well, after my "don't waste my time" comment, mate, that went down very, very badly, my predictions is I think the Lions will win the series, and I keep changing my mind, but I'm gonna go 2-1. I'm gonna go 2-1 to Lions. I hope it comes down to the third because we want that grandstand finish. But I'm going to go very similar to 2013, mate. I'm going to go 2-1 to Lions, and Lions secure the series. Australia have a really good series, play really well. Everyone gets hyped, mate. Come 2027, Australian rugby's flying. Everyone's mad for it, but I'm going to go for a 2-1 series win for the Lions.
Mate, I'm going to go for a 2-1 win to the Aussies. I just really believe we're building really nicely. We've got a good core group of players that are playing well at the moment in the domestic rugby competition against good quality teams like the Super Rugby teams in New Zealand. And so I think they're going to come into the series, full of confidence, not only off that, but off the back of their performances last year as well when they were together in the test team. And so, man, I'm going to back our boys and we're going to get up 2-1. I'm going to say we're going to win the first 2.
You're going to win the first 2? Is that what you reckon?
And then you boys win the last one.
Oh, mate. Hey, we'll have to get you back on, mate, after the first series. That's what we're going to have to, after the first test, sorry. We'll have to get you back on. One of us is going to be very happy or one of us is going to be very sad. Mate, thanks so much for your time, Will. Honestly, so much respect. Loved playing against you, competing, mate.
Before I go, I just want to give you your flowers, man. I reckon you're hanging them up. Mate, I honestly believe one of the best halfbacks that's ever played the game. Longevity, excellence at the highest level. Like you sort of praised me a bit before, but man, I used to watch you all the time. And I used to love coming up against you, but hate coming up against you because it was like he's going to make us look like a fool or make me look like a fool if I don't try and do that to him. And you made me look like a fool far more times than I ever did you because you beat us so many more times, man. So I've always been a huge fan. I love the way you play the game. Learned so much off you. And yeah, man, congratulations, bro. Unreal.
Will, thanks, mate. I appreciate that so much, mate, coming from you. I really do. Thanks for joining me, mate. don't hang up your boots yet, mate. You've still got a few more years in Japan, mate. Keep doing it. And, mate, so much respect. So thank you for joining. And, hey, let's get you on after the first test, mate, because I can then gloat.
We'll see how we go, brother.
Cheers, mate. Thanks so much.
Appreciate it, brother. Thank you, man.